Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Wealth on the Move, the podcast. These next two episodes are really going to be something special. I'm so excited that I got to meet and talk with a real powerhouse couple, Phil and Erin Lockwood. They are the brains behind the Always Be Changing brand. And really, when you think about Wealth on the Move, our podcast, the mission of Hoffman Wealth Management, it has been to help folks really move with their money and move throughout the world and create and exist in an untemplated type world. And they have built this semi-nomadic lifestyle with not just them, but they're also their kids. They're educating their kids while they're traveling the globe, hitting all 7 continents in 1 year. Just think about what that would do to your kids, hitting all 7 continents in 1 year. I'm envious. I can't wait to kind of take some of the things that they talk about and infiltrate it into our life. But in addition to that, they're still running a business. They're monetizing what they're doing on YouTube. They've reinvented the modern travel agency and they've launched their own global education platform so you can learn to do this as well. So they're not just travelers. They're not just creators. They are living this untemplated life that I'm sure we all see them on YouTube or see folks like this on YouTube and wonder, how can I do that myself? So this 2-part conversation is one you do not want to miss. I look forward to you listening. I look forward to diving in with Phil and Erin, and let's just get on with it. This is another episode of Wealth on the Move, the podcast. Your life journey doesn't stand still, and neither should your wealth. Welcome to Wealth on the Move, the podcast. Will Hoffman offers investment advice through Private Advisor Group, which is a federally registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult with the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. All right, welcome back to another episode of Wealth on the Move, the podcast. And I'm excited to jump right into this. 22 years ago, when I knew that I wanted to own my own practice and own my own business, the mission has always been to help folks really use wealth to change their lives and to create the kind of freedom that we all probably desire and would all wish for. You know, admittedly, go down the rabbit hole of YouTube all the time and found a few years ago the couple we're going to talk to today because they are really demonstrating and living what we have tried to create and revolve our business around. If you're familiar with Always Be Changing or the Always Be Changing couple, Erin and Phil Lockwood, they're going to be joining us today to discuss how they have really evolved their lives, their families' lives, their children's education, from a 9-to-5 business owner to a semi-nomadic lifestyle where, and I'll let them correct me if I'm wrong, but hit all 7 continents last year and are doing so while they're educating their kids, while they're not only running their business, but also growing other lines of businesses, other ways to monetize their experience. I'm super excited. I again feel like I'm amongst 2 celebrities right now with as much as I've watched and consumed their content. So without further ado, welcome Phil and Erin Lockwood to the Wealth on the Move podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you guys. We could probably go on and on and on. So we're gonna jump right into it. If that introduction wasn't enough, I'm gonna let Phil and Erin kind of talk about themselves for a second, and what motivated them to get to this lifestyle. So first, give us a little bit of background about you guys. Professions, careers, what's been going on up until you decided to create the Always Be Changing personas.
Why don't you start from the beginning for yourself?
Oh, well, 1981, I was born. I grew up really active and traveled quite a bit. And, once we got married, we already had a kid, right? Again, so we planted our roots pretty quickly and had 2 more kids. And I just did a hodgepodge of things and just mostly managed the kids a lot. But I got into...
a hodgepodge also includes how many novels?
Yeah, I wrote 6 novels
Right.
and self-published them. And I mostly am just proud that they're these huge projects that I completed. But they were just for fun. It wasn't like a career.
Okay.
Just, on the side, I guess. And I love creating projects. So I think that's why I like what we do now with YouTube, is because each one is a little project that we get to complete. But yeah, we started traveling in about 2020 because we realized that in-person school was not a good fit for our youngest son, Cole. And so we took a look at that and we said, well, if it's not a good fit for him, maybe it's not a good fit for Brooklyn. And then with the pandemic, Reagan was in online school too. And then we decided to take advantage of that and travel.
But Erin's entire childhood was very travel focused, which I guess would be the opposite of mine. She grew up in the Bay Area, California Bay Area, by the way. And as a member, a competitor within the figure skating world, she had to do a lot of travel just for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I grew up in rural Indiana, never left this continent until 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm 52 now, by the way. So that's a lot of time, you know?
Yeah.
But even I served in the military, in the Air Force, and still never left the country for that in any way, shape, or form. So it's really a dichotomy in terms of background when it comes to travel, because she's got a lot of it, had a lot of it, and I had almost none of it other than U.S. states.
Okay.
But then 5 years ago, which is not when we got married or started dating, by the way, that was 15 years ago. But 5 years ago, we decided, you know, this whole COVID thing is very odd, and it's really kind of changed our perspective on life in general. And that was the impetus for really going down the path of a travel nomadic kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that COVID is what made us want to travel more, but it was the kids and like how they fit in with school and all that was what made us want to live outside the bubble, and then traveling just fit perfectly with that.
Okay. And we'll get into what nomadic and semi-nomadic means. But there was a lot of things that you would always discuss on your YouTube channel, and it's a phrase that we've actually started to include in our marketing as well, Phil, and it's the word untemplated, because we by and large, for the most part, live a very templated, especially when it comes to school. And you know, we cyber school our oldest. This is probably 3 or 4 more podcast episodes we could talk about when it comes to public education and the cyber school alternatives. But it's very templated. It's 9 to 5. It is sit in traffic. It is get home, shove something unhealthy in your face, get the kids to baseball or lacrosse or soccer, get home, get everybody cleaned up, get to bed, wake up, and it's Groundhog Day all over again. It seemed like your motivation was to get away from that, not necessarily just traveling, but this templated existence that we all feel like we're stuck in.
Yeah.
Yeah. We maybe both can say that we've got that in our background, but I will say for me, it's been a dominant factor throughout my life. Is what's the quote from one of my favorite movies, Blow, with Johnny Depp, where he says, I was never very good at doing things the way they were supposed to be done. You know, and for me, from a very early age, like I was doing different sports than all the other kids and going into the military instead of to college, and then trying to do some college, but deciding to become an entrepreneur instead of going down a high promising career path. You know, so the idea of just doing things in a very different way is baked into my DNA and certainly into our relationship together.
Okay. And then is that what you wanted for your kids? Was to transition to that untemplated? You wanted them to see that?
Yes. And again, you could say that there were multiple impeti. What's the word, Will? Where one,
I don't know. I'm money and numbers, buddy. I don't.
As Erin mentioned, you know, our son just wasn't really thriving within the public school system, and wouldn't have within the private school system for that matter, because he went to a special, what do you call it?
A magnet school.
Magnet school, you know, specifically for kids who have a very different way of learning, for example. And even that didn't really work out for him too well. So just understanding that the templated system wasn't already working for our family was part of it. But then the other part was, I think that COVID for us, maybe even more so than most families, but I think that this is probably somewhat universal. We realized that the American dream or the promise of do things this way and this is what will happen to your life, this is what you'll get out of it, proved to be kind of a lot of BS in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we learned that, hey, guess what? We don't have to drive into the office every day. We don't, to be successful. We don't have to live and work and learn in the ways that people told us, because COVID showed us that we can completely disrupt that entire mentality
Yeah.
and still thrive. And in some ways connect with others on an even more meaningful level than we were before. So it really kind of broke the mindset, that this is what life is supposed to feel like, be like as Americans, as people living in the suburbs. And that was the driving force behind our change.
Although if this is what was disappointing to you coming out of that, especially with school, was that folks wanted to rush back to that.
Yeah.
Instead of saying,
Right.
wow. And that's where everything was kind of exposed for what was best for our son as well, was, he was able to get some individualized attention and work at his own pace, and not the pace that 9 school board members have decided he needs to work at, and thrived and really grew and developed. And schools learned nothing from that.
Right.
And couldn't wait to go back to this sit in a clean row, 1800s view of education. And again, like I said, we could probably go on for hours about the flaws there. But I'm sorry, Erin, you were getting ready to say something, and I jumped in there.
No, not at all. I was just going to say, like, there was a meme out there that really resonated with me, and I'm sure everybody's seen it. The old couple on the gondola in Venice, and they're asleep because they're just like so tired, exhausted,
and old.
Yeah. And the message is, don't wait until you retire to travel.
Yes.
And I felt like that's like the plan that everybody has, is to work so hard. And then by the time they're, tired and old, they're out traveling. And that's the same plan that your kids are on too. And we just thought, like, we want to do it now. We want to do it while we have
and
energy.
Our profession we are so guilty of perpetuating that, because every advertisement, every marketing brochure shows 2 old folks with gray hair holding hands on the beach. Like, why do I have to wait until I can barely walk to be able to walk on the beach and hold hands with my wife and enjoy what we're building and what we're working towards? Why do I have to wait until I'm 70 to say, okay, I'm going to hang it up. Now let's travel with my kids. Oh, wait, they have their own lives. They can't travel now. So we miss this when we have 18 summers, and that's it. That's not a lot of summers with these kids before they are going to want to go have their own experiences. Yeah. So, that's kind of been the mission with our marketing and our firm, is we don't want the old people don't get me wrong. We're catering to all demographics and all scenarios. But if you don't want to wait until when the marketing company says so, or when the annuity company or the mutual fund company or the ETF company says, now you can go you can go scuba dive now and snorkel now. No, we're going to do that now. We're going to try to figure out how to help you do that now.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Wealth on the Move, the podcast, brought to you by Hoffman Wealth Management. Here at Hoffman Wealth Management, we focus on working with busy families and active retirees, helping them navigate the complicated scenarios of their wealth while building the life that they desire. And we believe that every financial journey deserves direction. That is exactly what our proprietary process, the HWM navigation formula, provides. Just like a GPS, our navigation formula begins with 2 key questions. Where are you now? What does your financial picture currently look like? And where do you want to go? What goals and dreams do you have? From there, we help you navigate every financial turn en route to your desired destination with clarity and confidence. It's more than a plan. It's a personalized path forward. If you want to learn more on how the navigation formula can work for you, reach out through the contact options in the show notes below. We would love to help you chart your next move. Now, back to this episode of Wealth on the Move, the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about Always Be Changing. The brand that you've created, the mission that you're on when it comes to not just living this way, but showing folks that you're living this way, and then how you're helping them to learn how to live and create and monetize the experiences. How did you come up with the name Always Be Changing?
That's all, because he's literally always changing. Like I'll go to the grocery store and come home and the office is rearranged and
Yeah, it's so true. And that definitely was exacerbated within my agency world. So
Okay.
my marketing agency that I've had for a quarter of a century now. And at some point about 10 years ago, we decided to go through the typical corporate exercise of coming up with core values.
Right.
And, looking back over the years that we had already spent as an organization, it became very clear that maybe an area of frustration for some employees was how often we would change platforms, upgrade this, change that. It was a constant state of optimization. And so we put that one down there as a core value so that we could be very clear up front that if you are adverse to change, you're going to struggle here within the culture. And ABC, of course, really has a certain ring to it. It makes it
Sure.
easy. Ultimately, it wasn't just about change. It was about optimization, but always be optimizing or always be improving, which is the true message behind it. ABO or ABI just doesn't flow the same way. So we ended up with Always Be Changing ABC. But when we started our channel, or I should say when we started doing content on social media and on YouTube, we didn't know what the concept was yet.
Mhm.
So we thought, well, it's probably going to change over time. So why don't we just kind of grab that core value and use that as the title for the brand? And it's so far has worked out brilliantly.
I'm so glad we kept it as Always Be Changing because
Yeah.
it has evolved for sure.
Yeah, and brilliant. And as an observer, we just thought it meant location. Always
Place too,
be
yeah.
changing your location and the experiences and things that you guys are doing. So that was
Mhm.
kind of as an observer, that was where my head was they're always going somewhere. They're always moving. They're always changing their location. But it's an even greater mission and greater message that you're sending there. I want to talk about some of the lifestyle shifts that you guys went through as a family, as a business owner, because you didn't, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't sell your business, take the cash, and decide to travel the world.
That's right.
Correct.
In fact, we didn't sell anything.
Right. You kept running your business
Mhm.
and then decided to travel the world and have the kids with you.
Right. And
How did that transition go? How was it received at the office or by your company?
Well, the company part was kind of easy because we had already been dabbling back and forth over the years with remote versus in person. And I think we'd made the final transition to 100% remote around a year before COVID hit. So we hit the ground running as far as that would go. And it was a factor of at some point just realizing that it was a better way. We were already having to hire people who were outside of the Denver area to make sure that we could get the best people instead of the closest people.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of opened up the idea, like if we can manage employees around the world, why are we even trying to focus on building an in-person culture? So as far as the company went, that part was pretty easy. And then our
Okay.
personal life, we still had some change leading up to it with buying the place in Coronado, spending time out there. You can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start. Just so much rearranging in our lives.
Right.
But we ended up buying a home in Coronado because that was where we always wanted to vacation. And that we were going there maybe 3 times a year and staying at the same place because we loved it and we just kind of got stuck in this is our vacation spot.
You're going to get me in trouble, Erin, because I know that my wife would love to be in Coronado 3 times.
Who
That's how we found you guys, because
Right.
we one of my best friends from college lives in San Diego and was getting married, and we had decided to take our boys and the babysitter and go to San Diego, and we're looking for hotels and had found some spots. And then I said, why are we even dancing around this? Let's just go stay at Hotel Del.
Mhm.
And we were looking for places to go, things to do, things to eat. And that's how we initially stumbled on your channel a few years ago, was the Coronado episodes with the restaurants. And I think we went to all of them, and a few extras. And because like Colt, your son, my boys have a very broad palette and were willing to try everything. So that was how we initially found you guys with Coronado. And then I had to wrestle Jamie back onto the plane to come home because once you're there, who wants to leave?
Exactly.
So we bought our place in Coronado November or December prior to COVID. So 2019.
So immediately, like,
and as soon
lockdown.
When things started looking really bleak in terms of COVID, we were like, well, we don't want to get locked down in Denver in February, March, whatever it was.
Right.
So we road tripped out to Coronado and spent most of lockdown out there.
Okay.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I think that the cabin fever, even being out there, still was kind of a major factor in terms of us looking around to see what else we could do outside of the States, outside of home, just to kind of travel. And that's how that started.
Okay. So, and we were talking about family transition. So when you were in Coronado, were the kids still in, I guess during COVID, were they still in traditional school, even though it was being done remotely by the districts?
Yeah, exactly.
The timing was interesting because we had actually decided to enroll the two youngest kids in online school for the next year when COVID happened. So we had planned already. And then it's just, coincidence, everybody was online.
Yeah. So in terms of starting the travel lifestyle, I think the kids were very much in the same place that we were, where they were maybe a little bit tired of not getting to hang out with other people, being locked down, even if it's an island house in Coronado, just kind of being locked down there. People, the entire family was ready for some change.
Yeah.
Get out.
Sure. Again, hence the name. So you reference your lifestyle as nomadic or semi-nomadic. Can you give us a bit of an explanation there for folks that maybe don't understand? Because you do have a home base. Where folks, there's a ton of folks that have no home base and continue to travel and create, but you guys have a home base. So can you talk a little bit about what the nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyle is and means to you guys and what you're trying to do there?
Me? Okay. Well, our oldest is my stepdaughter, so we share custody with her mom. Okay. And so we always wanted to have that home base so that we can be together as a family of 5 in Denver. And then we wanted to travel as often as we could, whether it's with her as a family of 5 or without her as a family of 4. And then Denver became a base for the other 2 younger kids too. So they kind of get the best of both worlds where they're out exploring the world, but then they come home and they have their group of friends in the neighborhood. And in the summers, they have, parks and playgrounds and the familiarity of the neighbors and the friends that they've grown up with.
Okay. And educating the kids. We've touched on it briefly and we don't want to spend on it too much, but how did you make the decision? How did you research picking a school? How did you decide to ultimately do and again, correct me if I'm wrong, an asynchronous style cyber school, correct? So that when you guys are on a plane, the kids can be getting caught up on their schoolwork.
Yeah, I specifically wanted something that was as flexible as possible and that had as few testing as possible, or standardized tests that most of the public school districts use. And there's a lot of online options for public schools, but we felt like that wasn't the best option for us because there's strict schedules with when you need to be online, present in class, doing the standardized tests, having to come in for like a PE seminar, stuff like that. And we were just really wanting the freedom. So we found Ignite Learning Academy, and it was the absolute perfect fit for us because the kids can not only do school anytime, but they can go at any pace. Yeah. You can choose to do only one subject for an entire month, and then the next month do the next subject. Or
isn't that incredible? Like
it is.
And if
incredible.
You took that into your brick and mortar school, they would melt down.
Yeah,
trying to figure out how to do that.
Exactly. And I have a lot of respect for the public school system because I feel like they do the best they can for the most.
Yes.
But, we found that our kids aren't most, and they just didn't fit into that mold.
So that decision, was it fueled by the travel or the kids, or a combination of both? How did you ultimately decide, okay, this is going to be the philosophy that our family lives by?
It's got to be both, right?
Yeah, but I think it is interesting to note that we had Brooklyn and Colt enrolled in online school before COVID even hit.
Yeah.
So that
okay.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember. I mean, we talk about how we had issues with finding the right school for Colt, but I don't even remember how much of this was actually due to the fact that we had bought a place in Coronado. And so we were thinking we were going to split the years. So we wanted the flexibility. I would imagine it was a big factor, but 5 years is a long time ago, Will.
Yeah.
And actually, we're talking like 6 now, right? Almost.
Yeah, almost 6. So now onto the content creation a little bit. Was that just a, hey, we're doing this, we might as well video ourselves, or was the content creation the ultimate goal?
Again, 6 years ago, 7 years ago for the story, it was a long time ago. And Erin and I, we get asked this question a lot. So we talk about it a lot. But at some point, you have to wonder if you are regurgitating responses that you've had to other people over the past 6 to 7 years, or if it's actually based on the reality. But Erin was doing some part-time work for my agency. She and I decided to take advantage of an opportunity that we saw in the marketplace for one of our client target groups, which was credit unions, and put out a video-based podcast, real short, like 5-minute mentor kind of thing on a daily basis. And so this was my idea. I wanted to put it into play, but I wanted it to be more interesting. So I was like, Erin, why don't you do it? We'll play off of each other in these lessons, these episodes. I remember we came into our office with an iPhone on a tripod and did a little test in the conference room and showed it to our employees. And one of them's like, I don't know, I think maybe you should get a microphone because it sounds kind of echoey. And we were like, okay, yeah, interesting. That's good feedback. And thus began this endless evolution of our content creation, where we bought a microphone, then was like, well, let's upgrade our camera. Well, let's take care of some sound dampening in the room, all of these other things. And we spent a fair amount of time creating content for this together. And at some point then, right in 2019, we decided, hey, we're seeing a lot of other people do content like family-based stuff, travel-based stuff. That's kind of interesting. What if we start doing this not just on an agency professional level, client focused, but instead to be, vloggers, influencers, whatever. Yeah. So we just started playing around. And again, we didn't know what the concept was yet because we weren't traveling the world yet. So some of our initial episodes, which I don't think we've taken down from the channel yet.
I love them.
I don't see anything missing.
I mean,
there are some that we've taken down, but if you go to the videos and then sort by oldest first, you can see some of them where it's not even about travel, really. It was more lifestyle based.
Yeah.
But that's where it started. And then it wasn't until seeing some other family travel YouTube channels and saying that's kind of interesting. And then becoming members of a travel group ourselves in 2020 that we said, you know what? This is the concept. Let's keep traveling and let's make our channel about those experiences.
Okay. And was that the Inspirato?
Yeah.
Okay.
It feels very technical and I'm very emotional. So I think we make a pretty good team.
Because you cry and I film it.
That's not true. Actually, Phil is not that guy. If I'm crying, he's usually putting the camera down and saying what's wrong. But I do cry a lot. But I think that he really got excited and took to like the technical part of things, like the lighting and the camera and the microphone, and he really took to being an expert on those things. Okay. And I've always wanted to live out loud in a way. Like that's part of why I wanted to write books. And I think that when you are putting yourself out there, it feels weightless. It feels more free.
Yeah.
So I loved the idea of publishing everything we were doing.
Now, and we're going to get to the monetization of all that in a second, because, but before we do, I want to ask, when you were making these decisions and about to start packing bags and heading out. What discussions, what processes, what did you guys do from maybe a financial standpoint? You don't have to tell us budget or anything, but how did you look at your family, your finances, and say, okay, this is financially achievable? Because that lifestyle is not cheap. That lifestyle is not, very forgiving on the wallet. So how did you make that decision to press on and move forward from a personal finance point?
One thing we found really quickly was that when we were traveling outside of school breaks, spring break, winter break, summer, that things were sometimes less than half the price. So we actually didn't realize how much more affordable travel was outside of peak seasons.
Sure.
But there was also a very conscious decision to say that we were going to prioritize the travel experience. Is it the most responsible financial planning, retirement planning strategy? No. It's better to make the money early and allow compounding interest to help you retire as early as possible and as well off as possible. But I think there are some things in the world that are more important than money. And the experiences that we get on a cultural basis, I think in our minds just always trumped the compounding factor for us. So it's, as to live the lifestyle, there's going to be a trade-off there. Sure. And for us, we knew which one was more important.
Yeah, everything has an opportunity cost, and clearly you guys saw that path. Wow, that is just the beginning. What you've heard so far is only part one of this amazing conversation with the Lockwoods. In part two, we're going to dive deeper into how they've actually funded their global adventures, how they've built multiple income streams from their travels, and what they've learned about parenting, risk-taking, and living a truly rich life on their own terms. So don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed, and part two will be ready and waiting for you soon. Until then, please remember to keep your wealth moving.